In this video, I'm going to be describing how I choose seeds, what I look for, kind of some of the things you need to know, especially for short season areas, what to look out for, and also give you a glimpse into my own seed storage, seed hoard, seed collection. We'll go with collection. So this is part of a series on how to plan your garden. And this will be, I think, the second video, and then we'll start actually sketching it out in the next video. So if you do enjoy this video, please like and share and subscribe and all that stuff. We're not really getting very many viewers, and I really want to get this video out to the person or people who really need the extra encouragement. I love a catalog that has great photos. It just makes the whole experience so much more enjoyable. And it gives you an idea what the finished product is, so that you know what it's supposed to look like when you harvest it. A couple things you want to know when you're seed shopping in a short season area is you want to pay attention to your days to maturity, and you want to pay attention to whether something is a cool season crop or a warm season crop and plan accordingly. So for beans, they're fairly short season, depending on the variety. And so I usually direct sow everything in the beans category, but with other things, like, say, cucumbers. Cucumbers can be a pretty short season thing. This one here is approximately 50 days as an example. But if you want to get a head start, you might start some inside and then put them out under cover, as well as direct sowing some for a staggered harvest. Also, the thing to consider with season length is, for an example, pumpkins. Neon is a favorite bush type pumpkin that I've really enjoyed. It's kind of a just about guaranteed crop, and it's a bush instead of a vining pumpkin, so it doesn't take up nearly as much space. And it has a maturity range from 60 to 80 days depending on light and water and all those things. The thing to consider with those days is that those days are from seeding in they're either days from transplant, which it'll often specify, but in this case it doesn't, or it'll be days from seeding. And I think with pumpkins it's generally days from direct seeding, and you can't just direct sow your pumpkins as soon as the ground is thawed, so you can't necessarily use your frost-free period as your viable days for growth. We did not get a frost this year after, not a hard frost anyway, after I think the 25th of May or so, but the ground wasn't really warm enough to seed right away, and it actually took another 2 weeks to be able to seed the pumpkins for the pumpkin patch. So depending on that, you may want to consider starting inside versus direct sowing. Soil temperature really matters with some things. Like the hot season stuff generally needs a warmer soil temperature to germinate well. And if it's seeded in cold soil, the germination rate will often be poor. The seed will rot in the ground, especially if it's wet and cool. So those are some things to look out for. You also want to look at a bit of an idea of how much space something is going to take. You might be using a square foot gardening method or something like that. This catalog has this really handy feature right here in this corner that just talks about summer squash and how many weeks to start it early if you're wanting to, if you can direct seed it, how many days it should take to germinate, how deep you should seed it, And then this is what you really want to know is how much space between plants. If you're using a square foot method, you can use this in every direction. If you're using a row method, this will give you a bit of an idea of how much space you need to still have room to walk between rows. So that's a really good thing to look out for, to give you a bit of an idea. But again, some varieties are going to be different. And also, if you're using a square foot method with something like zucchini, you can actually stake it. So you see this main stem here. If you just put a stake in there on either side, that stem will stay straight and it'll keep growing up straight. Whereas if you let it just grow without any support, it'll tend to it'll lay down and make slowly, but it will end up taking up more space because it'll sort of lean over through the season as it continues to put on fruit. So that's something to consider as well when you're thinking about spacing and how much space you have for what vegetables. I always love a variety of things, and you can often get mixes like this. These can be great if you're going to be planting quite a few of that kind. So if I'm going to plant, 10 zucchini next year, then a mix like this is great because chances are I'll get most of the varieties out of a mixed package. But if you're only going to plant 3 zucchini and you want each of them to be a different one, it's better to buy individual seed packets where everything is separated and then plant one of each. And that way you have a certainty that all of the ones that you planted are different. Because sometimes with these mixed packages, you'll sow 7 of them and you'll have 6 of one kind and then one of the last kinds, one of the others. So the mixed packages are often a good deal on a lot of variety, but that's really only practical if you're going to be seeding a lot of them, like a large number. As an example to that, in the pumpkin patch this year, we grew mini pumpkins, and I grew a mix. This one is, I think, a Jilby Little, and they're a little bit bigger than the average mini pumpkin. And they're just sort of an orange all over with maybe just a little bit of speckling. But then I grew, I think, 6 plants of a mixed variety of mini pumpkin. You can see this one's a little bit smaller, and he's really freckled. And all 6 of the mixed baby jack pumpkins all ended up being this color instead of the solid orange or the solid white, or even a different blend of yellow and white. So that's where, if you're going to use a mixed package, a mixed peg of seeds, then that works really well for a large quantity, but sometimes it can shoot you in the foot when you're trying to get a variety in a small number of plants. With tomatoes, you're always looking at a days to maturity from transplanting. And the thing to remember, if you're panicking because you have a really short season, you want to grow this amazing tomato, but it looks like there's way too many days and you're not going to make it. Don't let that be a solid, that's not written in stone. That's not a hard and fast rule. If you start them early and when you put them outside, you put them under a row cover for the first couple of weeks to help prevent that transplant shock, you'll often get an earlier harvest than if you just direct transplant without any additional cover. The better you harden off your plants, the more quickly they'll adapt. Also, you have to consider how early you're going to start your tomatoes. I have sometimes started my tomatoes too early and had really big plants to put out in the garden. They do not handle transplant shock as well as something that's a fair bit smaller. So I try to aim for a maybe foot tall tomato to put out. I feel like that's kind of the sweet spot for my area. And then I'm just super diligent on trying to harden them off well so that they don't get too much transplant shock. This next year, I'm going to be trying to boost some of my tomatoes up earlier by covering them and giving them that additional heat right off the bat. in the spring. And hopefully we can get some like summer tomatoes instead of just fall tomatoes. Either way, heirlooms are great. They can be a little bit slow to harvest, slow to mature. I did a video on that actually, on how to speed up your tomato ripening on the vine. I'm probably going to employ that this coming year a lot sooner than I did this year. But also hopefully this coming year will be a warmer spring, and that'll make a huge difference in how well things actually mature through the summer. Also keep in mind, the smaller the fruit, generally the earlier the ripening. And like I said, these days to maturity are very subjective. I've had, like this past year, I had 85 to 90 day heirlooms maturing before my 60-day cherry tomatoes. And that was because of the amount of water in the soil, how much rain we got last year. And so those rules aren't solid. Those rules are dependent on a lot of different factors. They're dependent on heat, moisture content, humidity, other stuff. Feeding as well. If the plant is really dry, it's going to take a lot longer to set fruit in the first place because it's not going to have the water to build up the fruit. So this is sort of an ideal day, but sometimes it can be earlier, sometimes it'll be later depending on the season and depending on the conditions. If you're not a first-time gardener, it's always a good idea to look through your old seed packages and see what you're running out of, what you really enjoyed, what you might need to buy more seed for, or what you want to find a new variety for. As you can see, I've got a decent collection, but I try to be pretty budget-wise on my seed buying, so a lot of the seed is fairly old. I don't buy all of my seed fresh every year. It just isn't necessary for most things. And in dry, cool conditions, seeds generally will keep for a lot longer than you think. Onion seed is the exception. Onion seed often goes off. The germination rates drop significantly after the first year, and a 3-year-old seed probably isn't going to sprout at all. I did do a trial of that. I had some 3-year-old seed this past year, and let's just say it molded. It did not want to germinate. These are all my seeds for my pumpkin patch. That's actually not all my seeds for my pumpkin patch. There's some more in here. But I try to keep things together. Also, isn't this melon gorgeous? Yes, Baker Creek. Thank you. Look at that. Oh. So I don't have a great organization system, and I really need to improve it. So if you've got any ideas for me, please let me know down below. And, you know, post links or whatever to whatever thing that you use, because I need help. I've also got some random plant tags for things that I've purchased in the past. It can be really helpful to keep these because you never know when you're gonna go, wait a second, what kind of apple is that? And then, yeah, so it's good to know. It's good to keep those. I don't keep them on the tree because the tree starts to grow and then it either falls off or it gets old or it gets damaged or it chokes the trunk. So those aren't good options. So it's always a good idea to look through. I have a bunch of new tomato seeds this year. I am so excited. I've actually done my basic seed shopping already. So there's some new stuff in here that I did not grow last year that I'm very excited to try. Like these purple pole beans. I like me a purple bean because they're awesome to cook because they tell you when they're done. Usually they turn green. But my purple beans this year were a pain to pick because the bushes just flopped over and all the beans were on the bottom and I could hardly tell the difference between the color of the beans and the soil. So I went for a pole bean this year and I'm gonna train them up on a fence and that should make picking a lot easier. So I've got a whole bunch of good stuff in here and I haven't actually sorted through all of these. I'm looking forward to that lettuce. I'm actually gonna be starting some lettuce here very soon. I'm hoping to get more videos out once I starting seeds. And for me, that'll probably be For the garden, I probably will start my onions in January, and then it'll be a slow build into whatever I start for the garden in the summer. But in a week or two, I will be probably starting some small tomatoes, some lettuces, maybe some baby kale and stuff like that for eating through the winter. So I will document that as it comes. But anyways, it's a good idea to go through and go, you know what? I really like this variety. Got plenty of them. And just have a look through what you've got, what you need. Are you empty? Still got spaghetti squash, we're good. And then one of the things I'll do with the pumpkin patch, because I often have a very specific number of pumpkins that I can plant in the available space. So I will look at these and go, okay, moringa, that's good. How many seeds have I got? And I'll go through and I'll count these. And then I will write the number on the package on the back where I can read it. And that way when I go to make my garden pumpkin plans, I know how many seeds I actually have, whether I need to buy more, whether I have enough for what I need. So I would count these and then write the number on here. And then with direct sow, I always seed at least 2 seeds per hole, and then I'll thin them out. And that just makes sure that I have a complete germination. And also some of these seeds, like this one here, probably won't germinate because it's split already, and therefore the inside of it is exposed and it might not germinate well. So I will put the number of the seeds here, and then I'll calculate half of those is the number of plants or spots I could put them in. And then that's how I can figure out whether I need more seeds of any particular kind. Watch me drop seeds into my bag. And then, this is why I don't normally do this above this thing. So like I said, I've already done my base seed shopping because I knew with the heavy demands on seed growers this past year with all the new people starting gardening, that there's a lot of shortages and stuff. And so what I did to start with was I actually ordered my seed in October, I think. And I ordered all my seed in October already, but I just got the sort of bare minimum that I would need to build my garden this coming year. Because I don't want to take opportunities away from other people to start a garden, to try new things. One of the things I definitely started doing this year was saving more of my own seed. So here's a little package. And I just got these at a stationery store. So I've got little bags for some tomato seeds. I'm doing this upside down. And what I'd like to be able to do is to begin the year with the intention of saving seeds so that I can actually save more seeds than I have. With the tomatoes, I'd like to do more isolated seeds, and I would like to save more of my own pumpkin seeds, but that's a bit of a process, and I didn't start it early enough to get the volume of seeds that I would really hope to have. And then I would like to be able to start up a local seed swap and maybe donate some extra to the local community garden as well. So that's a basic seed shopping guide. I love the Vessi's catalog. It's just amazing with the photos and everything. I'd love to get some more catalogs as well, actually. I would love to get a Baker's Creek catalog, but to get it here in Canada, I think it costs shipping and money, and I'd rather spend that money on seeds. So I tend to look at Baker Creek online and just spend the extra money on the seeds. But if you have any catalog recommendations or seed company recommendations, or more specifically, I mean, you're talking about flowers and perennials and stuff, is there any company that is your go-to for hardy bulbs or fruits or bare root plants or stuff like that. One of my favorites is Hardy Fruit Trees Nursery out of Quebec. If you just type in Hardy Fruit Trees, it'll come right up. I have pears, a plum, and a couple apple trees from them that I'm very excited about, that have survived the winter last year beautifully, are currently covered in snow, and hopefully will begin to fruit in the next couple of years. Yeah, they're great. They send bare root. Their plants were in really good condition. They grew really quickly. And from what I understand is they don't grow most of their stuff on dwarfing rootstock. That's another thing to know. If you're looking at trees and shrubs and stuff like that, let's see, there's a spot in here somewhere. I think it might be at the end. So if you're looking at fruit trees and stuff like that, anything that's grafted, so your apples, your pears, your plums are sometimes grafted as well, I think. A lot of them that are sold or grown for commercial selling are grown on dwarfing rootstock because they're intended to be grown by people with little backyard gardens. That might be ideal for you if you have a small backyard garden, but if you're in a very cold, if you're in a very short season, cold season area, very hard winter areas, you will find that those dwarfing rootstocks don't have as much vigor as a full-size rootstock. And so what I really like about the Hardy Fruit Trees Nursery is that they don't grow their stuff on dwarfing rootstock, which makes the plants quite a bit hardier. Because the hardiness of a grafted tree is based not only on the hardiness of the graft, but also on the hardiness and vigor of the rootstock. And so I am very excited that I have trees that are not dwarfing rootstocks, because they should hopefully have a little bit more vigor. And of course, because I have the space, they'll produce larger trees with more fruit in the future. So that's the thing to look out for. You can prune any apple tree to the size that you need it to be. Granted, if it's a non-dwarfing rootstock, you're probably going to have to prune harder and it'll need more root space. But depending on the amount of space you have, I would recommend you rather get one tree that's going to really thrive than 4 trees that would fit in the same space but are going to struggle every year. Just another thing to keep in mind. That's all for today's video. Again, like, share, subscribe. I got an Instagram account, I'll put that up here, and you can get sneak peeks of new videos that are coming up and what I'm up to through the winter. And we're gonna start doing some seed starting and all that stuff soon. So I'm excited about that. Please join us for the ride. All right, we'll see ya.